Alright, hello. Today I want to talk about something that's very important to me. And before I get on to my soapbox or ramp or whatever you want to call it, I want to explain something about myself. First of all, if you had asked me 10 or 15 years ago, I would have told you that I'm a feminist because I strongly believe in equal rights across the board. Whether you're talking about race, gender, nationality, you name it. Even religion, it should be all respected equally across the board. And I firmly believe that, especially when it comes to equal rights, that women should have just as much equal rights as men do. Women should be allowed to be in the military if they want to. Women should be allowed to vote or, do any of the jobs that men do. If a woman wants to be a firefighter, I say, hell yeah. A woman wants to be a peace officer, hell yeah. A woman wants to join the military, hell yeah. If they can do the job, they should be allowed to do the job. To me, that's that simple. If you can do what's asked and required, then you should get the same treatment. No better, no worse, the same. With few exceptions. Like, maternity leave, obviously, because, that's a medical condition. If men had an equal, one, they'd get it off just as well. Um, but that being said, I no longer consider myself a feminist because feminism hasn't become about equal rights. It's gone to something beyond that and nastier. To quote the great George Carlin, okay, I'll give it to you. I won't call her a policeman, I'll call her a police officer, but I'm not going to call that a person hole. It's a manhole. Get over it. And on that notion, things are no longer equal. Let's take, recent news. Okay? Now, if someone reads in the newspaper or sees on TV that a woman was brutally beaten, either, to an inch of her life, or raped, or gangbanged, or any of these things, you look at the reactions of any guy any guy, you even have, like, an occasional association with, any guy in your vicinity. Let's say you're at Best Buy, and there are, like, hundreds of TVs on the walls, and it all comes up that a woman was beaten or raped or anything along those lines. And let's say that the place is jam-packed like it's Black Friday or some shit. No guy there would laugh. No guy there would initially think it was funny. No guy would laugh instinctively. No guy would even remotely think that was funny. Whether they're alone or in a busy store, no guy is going to find that funny. Okay? No guy whose mind is, like, mentally right will find that funny. However, when the story of Lorraine Bobbitt came around, and recently in the news, a woman cut off her husband's penis and then took it to the garbage disposal, or the food disposal, whatever, and had it shred up. Now, there's no way of getting that back. It won't be surgically reattached. It won't be any of that stuff. It's gone. That penis is gone. Okay? Permanently. There's no getting that back. There's no surgical procedure. There's nothing. It's gone. You look at all the women there's going to be a bunch that laugh, like, instantly, instinctively, who initially think it's funny. There will be. And when I was watching an episode of MASH, there's this guy who falls in love with Hot Lips Houlihan. And she wants to be intimate with him, but he kind of evades her. And she finally finds out why at the end. He stepped on a landmine, and he doesn't have the ability to have sex with her anymore. My biological sister instantly laughed at this and thought it was funny. And she didn't even try to hide it or anything. And I'm sorry, but if the tables were turned, if that was a woman that happened to, no guy would laugh. No guy would think that was funny. No guy in their right mind. But, your average woman, they'll think it's funny. If something, bad happens to a man's penis or whatever, they'll laugh. they'll point and snicker. And they'll initially think it's funny. But what's really happening is the man is physically emasculated. The man has been sexually assaulted. He has been mutilated beyond repair. This is not funny. This isn't remotely funny, but women will laugh. Lots of women all over the United States who are perfectly all right in their minds. I'm sorry, but there's an equality there that exists. That inequality doesn't limit it to that alone. I hear way too often of women complaining about men being pigs. Well, first of all, if all men are pigs, then all women are lesbians. A pig is a female. A hog is male. Okay, so first of all, men aren't all pigs, because that would make you all lesbians, because there'd only be one gender, female. Second of all, women think about sex just as much as men do. Women look at things that sexually arouse them just as often, as much, if not more, than men do. Women are far more obsessed with sex than men will ever be. I don't care what time period, what culture you're talking about. And to demonstrate this, because as I said, I don't say anything without providing evidence or being backed up, today, this very day that I'm making this video right here, right now, I did my own research. See, if you go to any sections of magazines, you look at all the women magazines and you look at all the men magazines, look at all the different variety of men magazines. You have Sports Illustrated, which, yes, has the swimsuit model section, which is supposed to be all sexy and sexually attractive and sexually arousing. Okay? But then we have other things that have nothing to do with women in skimpy clothing. We have Fish and Gaming. We have PC Repair. We have bodybuilding magazines. We have culinary magazines, because there are men who like to cook. I personally like to cook and bake. It used to be that I could cook, decently, and I wouldn't trust, baking for anyone, because I always managed to screw that up. Now I'm an excellent baker. I'm an excellent cook. I've got a sewing machine behind me. I sewed my own pant legs. I had about 4 inches that were ripped off the bottom of my pant legs, because they always get under my heel and rip that big hole. I fixed that up myself. There are mechanic magazines, there are PC gaming magazines, there are anime magazines. You go to the women's section, it's home and gardens, it's sex, relating to sex, more relating to sex, and fitness, which all relates to sex. All of it. And today, my neighbor got, picked up 5 magazines for his lady. He picked up 5 magazines for his lady. And all these magazines, right? Just 5 random magazines. And these aren't, your teeny bopper, sex craze magazines like Cosmo either. The first magazine was People. And the front cover had a beautiful woman on the cover. Okay, because we see beautiful women, we think sex. Seriously, it's a stereotype that if a woman's attractive, she must be a slut. Men, women think this equally. At least initially. But they don't like to judge, like, up front. It's all like behind back, whisper, gossip shit. Okay, so I opened to a random midsection within People magazine. And on page 48 and 49, the highlights were virgin territory. The other one was boys can be affected by HPV disease too, another sex-related topic. Life and Style Weekly, the front of the cover was Kim Kardashian. And all of it was like relationship crap on the side, and the titles and everything. All of that was relationship crap. When you think relationship, how often do you think of an intimate relationship between people without having any kind of sexual, background thoughts? Seriously, if people are in an intimate relationship, you think sex. That's the first thing that comes to your mind. I don't care who you are. And if you say otherwise, you're full of shit. I'm sorry. I'm not going to buy it. And I'm not trying to say all people are the same, but intimate relationship and sex go hand in hand. Seriously, if you see a boyfriend and a girlfriend holding hands, you know, older teens, older adults, you think they're probably fucking, and you're probably right. So, moving right along, I opened to the random midsection on page 25 of Life and Style Weekly. I found Bradley Lovers Playing the Field. Playing the Field is a sexual reference. On page 24, Why She's Worried. He jumps from woman to woman. Once again, pertaining to sex. Page 39, George and Stacy, Another Sexy Getaway. What the fuck do you care if someone goes on vacation? But they add the word sexy, pertaining to sex. You know, they throw in all these words that always pertain to sex. Sexy, breast cancer. The reason that they broadcast breast cancer so often is because it sounds sexy and they always show the pink. The pink ribbon is for the breast cancer symbol. On page 61, Scarlett sent nude photos. These are all direct quotes from this magazine. I'm quoting word for word here. Star Magazine. Front cover. Exclusive. Frantic fight to save baby. Prague Kate collapses. Okay, but then you find out what the collapse is when you go to page, and I opened it randomly, and this is what it brought me to. It said, the collapse of her quick marriage to Chris, but misery has more to do with money than love. This is saying that, once again, it has more to do with her sex life than it has to do with money, which is why the relationship failed. Also in there, it says, Twilight Hunk, I'm gay. Who will make the shocking announcement? Yeah, okay, it's Twilight. Probably all of them. That's my bet. And the other one, the only non-sexual reference I found was I hate my teenage daughter. When I started this independent magazine research, I decided that I was going to go by a very set of rules. One, if I came across advertisements, I was going to keep on going, because by commenting on the advertisements would have been dumb and stupid. It would have flawed the research I was looking for. You market towards your market audience. That's basic 101 economics and business practices. You advertise the wrong thing to the wrong people, you're not going to sell anything. You know, you don't try to sell sex toys to little kids. You sell little kids toys like Legos and Barbies and doll houses and so forth like that. So yeah, that says nothing, you know, socially or culturally. But when I flipped to a page randomly, I stayed on that page, and I found, like, either a main article or something that was on the side to where people would, you know, mostly look. I wasn't nitpicking at everything I possibly could. I just looked on that page, and if I didn't find, like, a real headline, because a lot of these pages, they really didn't. They were just full of words, and there wasn't really a headline or a specific topic. It was more like an odd assortment of ramblings, and I only had a limited time to go through 5 magazines. So I opened up a bunch of pages, and I wrote down what I saw. So that's what you see when I'm quoting from these places, like, you know, Kardashian's collapse and her, like, relationship thing. That's what I commented on, because that was either the biggest thing or that was one of the sidebar things. But I was looking for, you know, basically anything that told me about what this magazine was really saying about various topics. And I've got over a whole page here of all these side notes, which I will scan, and then you can look at for yourself of how I took my notes and how I went about it. That being said, I hear a lot of complaints about women having nude scenes in movies. Oh, this is a guy flick. You know, the woman's being naked. It's just for sex appeal and blah, blah, blah. And that's the only reason you wanted to watch that, because she's sexy and naked and blah, blah, blah. You know what? Don't give me this shit while you're watching the movie Twilight. I'm sorry, but these PG-13 movies where with softcore porn or whatever the hell you want to call them, it's no different than fucking Twilight, okay? First of all, men are very visual by nature. This is, you know, a biological thing. We look at women, and yeah, you can call it shallow if you want, but the fact of the matter is, evolutionary speaking, if you have a woman who's more physically fit, stronger, and all this other stuff, she's not likely to die soon, okay? Now, in other times in history where food is very scarce, big, heavy women were considered the most attractive. You can see this in a lot of primitive drawings with very big women with very big titties, because this is something that happens to women. The more fat they get, it usually goes straight to the tits. Also, when they lose weight, it usually removes from the tits first. So, yeah, big boobs, big body usually kind of go hand in hand. Usually when you see like these Fear Factor episodes where these women have like triple fucking D tits and like no fucking waist, this is because they've got so much silicone in their boobs it makes my computer look like a sandbox. Okay? And I'm sorry, but I really don't find those women attractive. Women find those women attractive far more than men because of stereotyping women have towards other women. Yes, women being sexist against their own gender. See, when a woman walks by, the first thing that a man looks at is the face, and then we look at the cleavage. Now, why are we looking at the cleavage? Because she's fucking showing it. Okay? Now, the first thing a woman does is she looks at the tits. Now, a lot of you thinking, oh, that's full of shit, that's full of shit. No, think about it for a moment. Next time a woman walks by you and your boyfriend while you're at a restaurant, look where your eyes go first. You're looking at the tits first because you're characterizing your womanhood versus hers. You're comparing the two. Women are constantly comparing themselves to other women, and men aren't comparing women to women. Men realize that women come in all sorts of wonderful different sizes and shapes and colors. Now, there's some women that are very, very attractive that look completely different from another woman who looks very, very attractive. And we can't say who looks better. We just say, wow, these women are hot. I'd like to see them do each other. Yeah, it's true. Guys think like that. I'm perfectly comfortable admitting that I think like that a lot of the times. You know, if I'm caught between two women that I'd like to have sex with, rather than try to convince both of them to have sex with me, I'll convince them to have sex with each other. Hell, it's a shot. Why not go for it? I'm honest about that. But I actually asked a woman this while I was taking all this research, because I was waiting for my neighbor to get done rolling up his cigarettes, because it was a cigarette shop that I had taken him to. And I asked this woman who worked there, you know, honestly, because she asked what I was doing, I asked her honestly, when you're sitting there sitting at a restaurant with a guy and a woman walks by, he looks at her face, what's the first thing you look at? She goes, the tits. Honestly, I have to admit it, but yeah, the first thing I look at is the boobs. My neighbor was a little uncomfortable because I was being very direct, very open, and, you know, very specific with what I was talking about. And it made him uncomfortable, but she was perfectly fine with it, so he became less uncomfortable. He thought that it was like an inappropriate topic or whatever, but I don't. I'm very open about these things. I have no problem with this because I'm a very honest person. I like to look at the way things really are, not the way I think they should be. I mean, I like to look at things like that too, but I realize the way things should be and the way things are two very different things. And I like to make the world a much more open and honest place, because when you try to only look at the world the way you want to see it, the way you think it should be seen, a lot of things happen in the shadows and dark places in a society. Let's take the Amish country, the Amish civilization. Now, as I said in another video, I live in Ohio. And in Ohio, we have a lot of Amish around here. Now, a lot of Amish will say, that their world is better because they don't have all our sex on TV. They don't have all these electronics cluttering up our lives. They say we don't have, you've become a corrupt society. But they're a society that has hidden away its corruption. And its corruption is very disturbing. There's a lot of physical abuse in the Amish community. There's a lot of sexual abuse. There's a lot of incest. So you can make your own determination of which society is better. I'm not saying my society is better than the Amish. I'm not saying the Amish society is better than ours. But by covering up things, they're hidden away. And they fester into these nasty, nasty things that will haunt your society for forever. Another complaint that I can't stand hearing is about all this sexual harassment women get. But they don't talk about all the sexual harassment that they do to men. Now, like I was talking about the emasculating earlier, the physical emasculation. Well, women like to mentally emasculate men as well so they can feel better about their own gender. Which goes to sexual harassment. Now, sexual harassment is legally defined as any unwanted sexual attention. I have heard many women, including one of my own sisters, talk about, hitting me in the balls or cutting off my penis or, some other twisted shit like that. But if you stare at a woman's cleavage area, all of a sudden that's sexual harassment if you look at it too long. Now, here's a question. Why is there cleavage? You have shirts, button them up. You have shirts that cover, your neck and all the way down. I've seen many attractive women, wear shirts that covered everything. No fucking cleavage. And you know what I hear? What, we're just supposed to go around dressed ugly? I'm like, wait. You have to show cleavage in order to be attractive? That's their argument, that they have to show cleavage to be pretty. No, you don't. You don't have to show cleavage to even get a guy to notice you. Yeah, he's going to notice you more if he sees your cleavage. But he's only going to notice you physically. If you want a guy to notice you mentally, for your mental aspects. But women are this shallow. They're more concerned about, their looks on a daily basis than they are as a person. And I actually asked a woman at college this. Like why does she dye her hair? She goes, well, to be more attractive. I said, but your natural hair coloring is so much better. By dyeing your hair, you're trying to hide who you really are instead of, appreciating yourself for the way you're supposed to be. And then she said, you're very good, and I didn't understand what she was talking about. And, I guess later she thought I was trying to pick her up or whatever, but I think you should love who you are. You can't love someone else if you don't love who you are first. So, yeah, once again, women are being sexist towards each other. They think that their self-worth is tied into their intelligence, and they're always trying to be these very, very skinny women. When, once again, my neighbor was telling me, he and I both agreed that we prefer women with meat on them. You get these really skinny bitches, and I don't find them attractive. I really don't. As a matter of fact, I'm fucking terrified. If I was to have sex with one of these women, I would be afraid to break her in half. I want a woman that I don't think I'll squash to death, from suffocation if I so much as lean on her. I get, kind of scared that way. And I'm not all that big of a guy. To be honest, I weigh a little bit less than 250 pounds, but I'm only about, 5'9", 5'10", something, around there. So I'm actually not all that big, but, with women this small, I'm afraid I'm going to break them by sneezing, So, there's a concern there. But, you know, women think sexual harassment is when a guy looks at their boobs too long. Well, you know what? That's not sexual that's not sexual harassment, and here's why. You're advertising your own cleavage. The reason you have cleavage showing in the first place is to show it to everybody. I mean, seriously, I don't show part of my balls when I walk around. Not intentionally, you know. This one time at Mark's, but that's a different story entirely. But yeah, you don't go around doing that as a fashion statement. The reason you go around with a fashion statement or a fashion style is so that everybody looks at you. Because the one thing that's worse than a guy being obsessed with your looks, a guy desiring a woman, is a woman not being desired at all. And women want to be desired. Women want to look attractive. Women want all these things to feel better about themselves. You know what I do to feel better about myself? I housed homeless people in my apartment during the wintertime. I've loaned, you know, almost all my neighbors money. I've given all my neighbors rides whenever they needed them. You know, they say, look, I really got to get to the store. I've taken my neighbor and her husband, who also my neighbor, so I guess, you know, my neighbors, took both of them to several stores, loaded up my car with all their groceries, didn't ask for a single thing, drove them all over the place, you know, spending hours out of my time to help them get groceries into their apartment because their car wasn't running. And these grocery stores are within a 10-minute walking distance. And I still took them all over the place. Most of my neighbors has referred to me independently as a saint. This is how I feel better about myself, by being a better person. So, yeah, I'm not just trying to, like, toot my own horn, but this is the kind of person I am, and this is why I feel good about myself. If I did a lot of bad things, like stealing and, you know, other shit, then, yeah, I'd feel bad about myself, because those are bad things. And when you make excuses for doing bad things, you are continuing to be a bad person. A good person who admits the wrong things that he's done is a better person for it. A person who doesn't admit when they're wrong, doesn't, like, confess to these things, continuously and spirals down to be an even worse person. If you cannot admit to when you are doing something wrong or to a wrongful act, then you are justifying that wrongful act. And you can't atone for something you can't admit to. So it's very important to admit to when you've done something wrong, because you need to own up to it. And by owning up to it, you can start back on the path of being a better person. And that's where you should get your self-worth from. Not from, you know, your looks, because those are only skin deep, and eventually those are going to go away. And you need to be remembered for who you were, not what you look like. My brother had this friend, and this friend was telling us a story about when he was with this girl. He was plugging away, and all of a sudden he stops. And he asked her if she's alright. She goes, yeah, why? He goes, well, because you're just lying there. And he was legitimately concerned. And she goes, oh, well, sex is a man's job. If that was me, I would have pulled out, I would have put my clothing on, and I'd have just left. I wouldn't tolerate something like that. You know, maybe this girl was just ignorant, or it was her first time, or she was scared. I don't know what, but that was an incredibly sexist thing to say. And not only that, but that shows a whole lot of ignorance. You know, not just about sex, but, you know, about, you know, basic things you say to people. I mean, this is just one of the examples of how, you know, men are viewed in society. You know, a lot of you women are probably thinking, what the fuck is this bitch talking about? And you'd be right to think that, because that's a pretty fucked up thing to say. And I mention it, you know, specifically because it is kind of, it is an unusual comment to ever make. But the fact that it was said shows at least one person's line of thinking. And it does say something about our culture. You know, men are supposed to be these sexual experts. Women are supposed to be sexually pure. You know, this is more about society and psychology. This whole video project that I'm making right now has more to do with that than actual sex. Sex just happens to be the underlying theme. And what influences our culture, our history, and a lot of our psychology, which is why the father of psychology was so obsessed with sex and why he thought it was the answer to basically all the psychological psychoses people had. Sex will really fuck people up. I mean that, in a dual meaning. But more so on the non-literal sense than the literal sense, because even dating back to ancient times, one of the oldest stories we have is of King Arthur and Queen Guinevere, who cheated on her husband. Now, one of the things I can't stand about like these social and gender equalities is that the claim is, oh, all guys are cheaters, or most guys are cheaters, or whatever. Men are perceived to always be the cheaters, but women are the innocent. When I don't know about you, but half the girlfriends I've had in my time have cheated on me. I've never, not once have I ever cheated on a woman. Not once would I ever cheat on a woman, because I can't understand how someone can betray another human being like that. One of the things I'm known for amongst my friends is the amount of loyalty I have towards them. I have too few friends in this world because my relationships tend to end abruptly. So when I have a friend, I tend to hold on to that friend as long as possible. I don't hit my friends. I don't, trash talk them. I don't do shit like that. And I would sacrifice everything that I have and everything that I am for a friend in a heartbeat. I would. I mean, I have certain limitations, of course, things that I would like to be able to do, but I just simply can't. And my friends understand these limitations that I have. But seriously, I would drop everything in a hat and go pick up my friend from 400 miles away, which I have done. Bring him all the way out here. And then bring him all the way back out to the place, again, and have to drive all the way back to get, into class. I do these for my friends because they're my friends. Friends are, true friends, not like the million people you have on your Facebook account, which you've never met in person kind of thing. No, real friends. Friends who are, when you say, I need you, will show up no matter the cost. That's friendship. And I can't understand betraying someone that you love intentionally. Now, I've unintentionally betrayed my friends and felt devastated by it because even if it's unintentional, I still betrayed them. And that hurts me probably more than them because of the kind of person I am. I don't know if this is a unique trait for me or if other people feel this too, but I simply can't understand how many people would cheat on their loved ones. A friend of mine said this because I've never been in a really long-term relationship like she had been in, so I can't fully understand. And maybe that's true. I don't know. Maybe you get too comfortable with people, or maybe too many bad things happen between you, so you try to hurt the other by going behind their back and sleeping with someone else, even if you never tell them. It's like hurting them, but aren't you really just hurting yourself? I don't understand this. And I know lots of guys who, if you even hinted that they've cheated on their girlfriends or wives or whatever, they would be infuriatingly mad at the mere suggestion of the idea. So there's another, misconcept between men and women and the differences in gender. But to sum up what I was saying before, again, to really drive this point home, that men and women, they don't think any more or less about sex. They just think differently about it. They just have different social expectations of one another and of themselves. So I'd really like this sexist bullshit to stop, because I have never made a joke about threatening to cut off a woman's tits or clit. But I have had women make comments about, hurting males. Oh, kick him in the balls, or do this, or he deserves that, seriously, who are you to say that someone deserves, like, that large amount of pain? It's not okay for a guy to beat up a woman or to hit a woman, supposedly, in any, for any reason. but it's okay for a woman to slap a guy if she misinterprets something he says. It's okay for a woman to kick a guy in the balls. As a matter of fact, in most movies, especially Disney, which really confuses the hell out of me, it's a family business. Like, you know, Disney is a family type movie industry, like Hookers, or not Hookers, but Hooters, you know, basically the same thing. Hooters is a family restaurant. Yeah, I've noticed that in almost every single movie that Disney comes out with has someone getting hit in the nuts. Seriously. 3D movie I saw from Disney that they were playing at this theme park in Canada, right? Like 4 different times a guy was hit in the nuts. Or not the same guy, but 4 different guys were, you know, hit in the nuts, you know, throughout this movie, and that was most of the laughs. You know, you've seen it on America's Funniest Home Videos. You've seen it on so many places where, you know, a guy gets hit in the nuts, and then there's the laugh track, you know, and that's okay. Violence towards men is always okay in the media, but it's never okay towards a woman. And that's gender inequality. And that shit's wrong. If it's wrong for violence against women, then it's just equally wrong for violence towards men. And to laugh at the violence towards men, that's just insulting and mean and rude. Now, yeah, there are men who laugh at violence towards men. And there are times where I laugh at a guy getting hit in the nuts. But you know what? In all those cases, those guys deserved it. When I say they deserved it, I mean they did it to themselves. So it's hard to feel sorry for them. Like when this kid goes up on his skateboard off of a crappy ramp that 1 wasn't built right, 2 he's not picking up enough speed, and 3 it's a stupid stunt. He should be wearing a fucking cup and protective gear anyways. I understand the extreme sports and the X sports and all that stuff with the extreme skateboarding and rollerblading and all that crap. I think that's pretty fucking cool. I think that's awesome. But if you're going to start learning how to do that shit, wear protective gear. Don't be fucking retarded about it. You know, so this guy, he hits himself in the nuts with his skateboard. And then he picks his skateboard up and gets mad, slams it on a concrete thing, and hits himself in the fucking head. He's a fucking moron. Yeah, I'm going to laugh at a moron being a moron. Yeah, I'm going to find that funny, even if he's getting hit in the nuts, because he's hitting himself in the nuts. Someone's not trying to be mean, violent, and vicious towards him in order to be funny. But women will laugh and think that's funny. But if you kick a woman in the nuts, well, not really in the nuts, you know, as Eric Hartman says, hit a woman in the nuts. If you hit a woman in the groin, it hurts them just as much. Because there are more nerve endings in the clitoris, in the human clitoris, than there is in any clitoris in any other species. That's actually a fact. You can look that shit up. Google it. I hope you like these series of videos. I haven't edited it yet, but this part will still be in it, even after the editing process. This video was to get us to look at ourselves, how we treat others, how we expect things from ourselves, from people of a different gender, from a social aspect, from a psychological aspect, and to be aware of yourself and to be aware of how you act, how you think, the things you know, the way you really think as opposed to the way you think, which isn't always the same thing. To be more self-aware so we can be more understanding of ourselves. If we can understand ourselves better, we can get to that higher level of thinking. We can better ourselves. We can become more than we've set these stupid little limitations, and we can understand one another much, much better. If you disagree with anything in any of my videos, feel free to disagree, as long as you're disagreeing honestly, as long as you're making legitimate you know, complaints or arguments, or if you don't like something about my video, if you think I'm wrong at any point, feel free to disagree with me. Because maybe you've heard something I've said that you found insulting, but I didn't mean it in the way you may have interpreted it. So feel free to, you know, and I'll freely clear up what I'm talking about. And another argument on YouTube someone thought that they knew where I was coming from, what I was talking about, and when I made like very specific examples and said, if you think this is this, then I'm sorry, but you're nuts, and you're completely screwing up everything, you know, including yourself. And she goes, okay, I see where you're going with this. I know what you're talking about, and on this point, I agree with you. So we came to an understanding because what appeared to be arguing was me just further explaining myself. And when you really listen to people instead of just only paying attention to what you think you're going to hear or what the person, you know, thinks about or how you think they think about rather than what they've actually said, you're missing so much important communication. So, like I said, feel free to disagree with me. I may make a response, but this isn't necessarily me arguing. This may be just me pointing out something about your comment or extenuating on the point I was trying to make it more clear, because communication can be a very, very congested, one-way flow kind of thing. And the whole point of communication is so that you understand the concepts and the meanings of what I'm talking about, and I understand yours. Because I can say one word, and you're going to think another word. And then that word's going to be trapped in your head, and it's going to miscue everything that I've been talking about. And this can go both ways. So, once again, I hope you enjoyed the videos. I hope they were entertaining, and I hope they were enlightening. Thank you.